Kayfabe was a way to show respect to the audience and respect your own business. It was a way to protect it.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, we are the generation. You make your rules, and we will.
Ladies and gentlemen, heels and faces, casual wrestling fans, and all you smart marks, I am Mr. Richard Moon.
And I'm Kayfabe AJ.
And this is Kayfabe Avenue. And today,
Tell them what we got for them.
Today,
Probably long overdue.
I told you I was gonna get my song in. You didn't know what I was gonna debut my song, but I did it. Pow! Right here on Chyna Spotlight. Yes, a long overdue. We are doing another Spotlight episode, and we were doing on the I don't want to call her the Immortal because somebody else has that.
She has her own name. She's the ninth wonder of the world. Joni Marie Laura Chyna. Long overdue. Before we get into it, let's remind them where we're located.
Well, since Rock's baby left him,
My song.
well, he found a new place to dwell. Well, it's down at the end of Jabroni Drive at
SmackDown Hotel.
We're in the SmackDown Hotel, coming to you live with this discussion on Chyna. But, you know, Roxanne by the side, this is all about Chyna.
Yes. Ooh, I love the song. This is one of my favorite. This is like when you knew, like, she moved from, like, star to superstar, like, her own music. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is like, what? Like, this is like, when she first started doing, like, a Playboy. I think this was, like, right here, like, when she, like, first got, like, that tune. But before
I think she was rocking with it around, from, like, 2000, 2001, around there. Pretty much when that split from Triple H happened and she drifted off, did her own thing. But we'll get into more of that.
We'll get into that.
So let's start with who she was. She was born December 27, 1969. Unfortunately, she passed away April 20th, 2016. Joni was just an icon. Like, her presence alone was unmatchable. Like, there was no woman in existence in the wrestling business, I think, that had just the look and the general,
the poise, just the look of everything of Chyna. But before we get there, let's do time jump. 1995. A lot of people, I'm pretty sure they do, but Chyna was trained by Killer Kowalski, and Killer Kowalski has trained Triple H, Perry Saturn, Big John Studd, Fandango, Damian Sandow.
Fandango, I didn't know.
I mean, a lot. I mean, that's a lineage of people. Triple H has given Killer Kowalski all kinds of credit to his training and all that. So,
you know, that's a great wrestling training background.
Yep.
But, you know, Joni also was a bodybuilder for a lot of years.
Yep.
And, you know, toning her physique was a big part of who she was, and she was very, like, healthy minded, and she liked to focus on making sure her body was put first.
Yeah.
And she had a physique
unmatched.
She was a bodybuilder that was probably more well built than a lot of the men out there. So she was somebody even changing the game before she even touched a wrestling ring.
It actually says she competed in New York City at regional level in the Fitness America competition. But because of her large size compared to the other woman, she usually finished in last place. So she basically finished in last place because she was so much bigger than
everyone else.
So she got her. Well, I don't want to skip to her debut, but apparently Triple H and HBK saw her at a wrestling show, and you know, back in the day, seen some VHS tapes of her, and then she got brought in to be a bodyguard. But before then, one of her first wrestling name was Jonah Lee, and guess who booked some of her earliest matches? The Fabulous Moolah.
That's a crazy thing to hear, because if anyone knows anything about Fabulous Moolah, there was a lot of controversy surrounding who she was in the business and her position in the business.
Yeah.
Fabulous Moolah was known as someone to pretty much bring in women who wanted to learn the business and fuck them over. Like there's no nice way to say it.
She wouldn't.
She used to.
She really wouldn't train them.
Wouldn't train them properly. Take their money, and if they were booked, she would make sure that they will lose to her if she was their opponent.
Yep.
She wouldn't put anyone over. So
I mean, at this point,
I don't think Chyna was
older.
somebody who she could have held down.
Nah, I mean, at this point, she was older, and Chyna would have straight beat her up. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. Chyna would have straight beat her up. I mean, Chyna was.
She would have just bench pressed.
She was a. This is when she was a straight bodybuilder. This is before, when she just first started getting into wrestling. So Chyna wasn't having that. Chyna was beating up guys. I mean, her first match was against a guy that was dressed up as a woman. So she started off just always wrestling the guys. Chyna already started with the foot ahead.
Are you referring to Goldust?
No, before she even got to WWF. Before she got to WWF.
In the early days.
Yeah, in her indie career. But yeah, she came in, and I was surprised. I thought it was on a Raw, but her debut, Chyna's debut, was at a In Your House pay-per-view, 1997 Final Four with Triple H versus Goldust. And what was your first memory of Chyna?
Well, my first memory of Chyna would have to be around the DX era myself, because back then cable wasn't as accessible as it is now.
Yeah.
I was very young, so I had to take what was given to me.
Mm-hmm.
But going back and thinking back on her actual debut, just her ragging Marlena.
Yeah, that was
just she it was from the crowd too, right?
Yeah,
like
she
pulled her from the crowd.
She was basically like a plant in a crowd, and she just hopped the barricades and she hopped out and she just started she grabbed her around the waist,
ragdolling her.
And
like
that's my first memory of her.
The match is going on, and the focus is just literally on this huge woman with arms that rival Hulk Hogan.
Facts,
like,
she
literally.
I remember my mom, because my mom was a big wrestling fan. We're watching this together. She's like, "What is it?" Like, she literally said, "What is it?" I mean, in that
no disrespect.
No, it wasn't disrespect. But in those days, we're used if a woman of Chyna's stature come on TV now, nobody would really kind of bat an eye. Nobody would really think anything of it. But then, a woman
I think,
so
honestly,
manly then.
Not to try not to be politically correct and everything, but I think nowadays they would just be like, okay, is she a man that is transitioned or anything like that? Because let's be real, Chyna's whole body went through a very physical change. Yeah. Not only because of the bodybuilding, like she, eventually went on and did a lot of structural changes to her face and plants and stuff like that, which were obvious if you follow her career or follow her life.
Facts. Because
but
she went from a bodybuilder.
She was bigger than Triple H.
Yeah, she
or
was.
as big as
Triple
H.
She was bigger than Triple H, because during this time Triple H he was big, but
she debuted. Let's not take nothing away from her debut. Her debut made history.
Absolutely.
She's the first female enforcer in wrestling.
Yep.
Back in those days, women were pretty much just valets or managers to the male stars, and we never had a woman in a position that she could physically impose,
especially
on a male superstar, or even give the hint that she can dominate that star.
Yeah, and at first guys were very hesitant to put her over. A lot of guys necessarily didn't want to put Chyna over because she's a woman, but. They were more concerned. It was very believable when Chyna did. I can understand.
They were concerned about how their character would look after the fact that they would take a loss to a woman.
But Chyna's believable.
And how creatively it would have still held up if that same person would try to get a world title shot. So the men were there were a lot of insecurities as far as involving Chyna in that situation. And back then it was the early 90s. A lot of ignorance. Yeah. A lot of people are not as tolerant as they are now. There's not the women's revolution is happening now.
That's
in
true.
2000, the last couple of years, 2014 and up, it's been happening in the past couple of years. But back in Chyna's day, almost everything she did broke barriers.
Yeah.
Literally every moment
she was very believable.
Almost every moment she stepped out, she was breaking a barrier or involved in a situation that created history.
Yeah, Chyna beating you up was very believable because Chyna was in a better shape than a lot of the guys back then. She looked bigger than the guys. So, I mean, but I can still understand why they still being hesitant, you know. But I mean, Chyna, you know, the first woman to enter the men's Royal Rumble. I mean, Chyna did a lot. You know, when we look back at it now, it's so, oh yeah, woman enter. I mean, we look at Nia Jax now, and it's just like, you know, she entered the Royal Rumble. You know, maybe for some of the younger people that might be a big deal, but I mean, for us,
to us, that's the Chyna spot.
Yeah, that's Chyna
That's
spot.
the Chyna spot. She's the first ever woman to do it, and actually made it believable, like she could possibly win.
Yeah.
So, you know, not only let's kind of try to make it a little bit of order. So when she came out, she was Triple H's enforcer. That was pre-DX. Another thing she's known for is being one of the founding members of the Generation X.
True.
Alongside HBK, Triple H, and Ravishing Rick Rude.
Yeah.
Now, when you think about the X is held as one of the biggest stables in wrestling history.
Yep.
It's up there with NWO, the Four Horsemen. When you think wrestling, you absolutely think of
everybody
DX.
Yeah.
And the biggest moments of DX were when Chyna was involved in the group.
The silent enforcer.
So, you know, a lot of big moves, big waves for women as a whole, as far as Chyna goes. Like I said, every time she stepped foot out behind after the curtains, she was making history for women everywhere.
Absolutely.
Not only that, 2-time and the first ever and only 2-time woman Intercontinental Champion. This feud propelled Chris Jericho and gave Chris Jericho a leg to stand on in WWF when at the time Chris Jericho was kind of drifting in the back and not really having much to work with. And
she sent Jeff Jarrett. She sent JEFFJARRET back with this
you can't even say it.
That's Jeff Jarrett. I mean, I really like that match. I mean, it was always Chyna was always believable to me. That's what I really like. Chyna was always believable to me. It never looked like she can't really do that. I was like, no, Chyna is badass. Chyna is as big as the guys. Chyna hits hard, and with DX, she was always beating
those
guys
clotheslines.
up. Those clotheslines, the low blows. You know, it was always believable. Chyna was always getting put in position. She was beating guys up. So
press slamming grown men.
Yeah,
like
I mean, she was a bodybuilder before she got into wrestling. So
she was something that honestly, if you didn't get to see her during those age, like during her age and coming up through the ranks of WWF, you missed the spectacle.
Well, how do you think Chyna would have fit in today?
That's a good question. I think honestly, if Chyna would have stood in WWF, if her personal issues with the company never came into fruition, because that is the reason Chyna even left. For those that don't know, Chyna is a one-time women's champion. She never lost the belt.
Never.
They forced her into pretty much retiring from WWF because Triple H and Stephanie McMahon had a relationship while Triple H was engaged with Chyna.
And she also wanted more money.
And there was a contract dispute, but all of that together pretty much led to her demise as far as her WWF career. And she's still the women's champion. I think she would have led the forefront of the women's revolution. I think the women's revolution would have started a lot earlier. At a time where she was women's champion, we had Lita coming up. We had Trish Stratus coming up. Yeah. We still had Jacqueline. We still had Molly Holly.
Yeah.
We, in a few years, short years, we'll get Victoria. We'll get Gail Kim. There were so many women in and out that
more women would have been inspired to wrestle.
They would have put
Chyna been.
I think honestly they were probably trying to build a division behind Chyna.
Absolutely.
Because Ivory at that time, who was the person who dropped the belt to Chyna in her first and only win for the women's championship. Ivory only had a few short months after that before she was gone from television.
I mean,
Jacqueline was there until about 2004, I think. So she could have had a couple of good matches with Jacqueline, with Lita, who was the high flyer role in the women's division. We had Trish Stratus.
We did get to see Chyna versus Lita though.
No, we did, and that was the person that she actually kind of elevated before she moved on.
Yeah.
But we even had Jazz. Imagine if Jazz and Chyna would have came together. There was so many possibilities, and like I said, I think the women's revolution would have started a lot sooner on the back of Chyna. We would have had Vince literally trying to throw opponents at her.
I agree with you, but today, if Chyna was around today in 2019, how do you think she would have fit in today?
Well, how she would have fit in today, by now she would have been in that older position.
Mm-hmm.
She probably would have been either a trainer for NXT or in the Hall of Fame, WWE legend guest appearance role.
Okay.
If she was actually in the division, I think she'd be more as a training, kind of like a Mickey James role.
Okay.
I don't think she'll still be in full contention, or kind of like like a Randy Orton, somebody like that, like probably still having decent matches, but her career at this point would be winding down more so than firing up. We're talking about Chyna in her prime when she won that women's championship. She was still very young, had a lot more years to give in wrestling. Period.
Mm-hmm.
I think by now she would have been regarded and already solidified by the company as a legend, and if not the legend in women's wrestling.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. I think Chyna would have been a legend. She would have already been in the Hall of Fame. Chyna would have just kept breaking records. That's what Chyna would have kept doing.
Yeah, she probably would have been multiple time women's champion. One of my favorite moments with Chyna is when she was with Eddie Guerrero, the Latino Heat.
Yeah, that was just awesome. I mean, just the look of Chyna that was during the Playboy era. That was just Chyna was riding high. Eddie was riding high. It was just a great look. She had really completely separated from Triple H at that point. I mean, they were almost a couple of years separated from that point, but it was just really good to see Chyna step on her own, like the music you were playing, like she had that music playing. And this to me, like when Chyna was like really, she was like in her prime, really. This was like prime time Chyna. So I think maybe I should have directed my question more of that, like if we could get like a prime time Chyna like today, like that would have been. That was a question more I was, and I apologize for that. That was a question more I was directing to, like if we could get like a prime time Chyna today, how she would fit in. And I think
if she was in her prime today,
if Chyna was in her prime today,
I think Ronda Rousey would have had a perfect antithesis to Ronda Rousey. I think she would have been the perfect opponent for Ronda. She would have been. She would have been.
Is Becky Lynch the man?
Imagine her versus Charlotte.
Is this the Becky Lynch the man?
I don't think Becky Lynch would be the man. No, I don't know. I don't know.
Is Becky Lynch still the man with Chyna around?
Chyna probably would have been looked at as the Undertaker of the women's division.
I mean, yeah.
Let's be honest.
It's very true.
She probably would have been the Undertaker of the women's division.
Yeah.
That judgmental last
Yeah.
Taker's word. You have to follow it backstage. So
and she really loved.
She would have been the same for women.
She really loved the WWE. Chyna unfortunately didn't really have a lot of her family. She wasn't really connected to a lot of her family. So a lot of people always said that the WWE was really like a home for Chyna. She built like a lot of her self-esteem there. She really grew to a lot of people like as family. Like on holidays, she would go to their family's houses instead of her own. So
it's without a question. Her getting fired from WWF definitely led to her demise. She died years later, but that would be the catalyst for like a lot of her turmoil.
It was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, it was the beginning of the end for Chyna after she got fired from WWF. And honestly, the fact that she was never given the closure with WWF
sucked.
Is the reason why she was in such a depression, because she literally lost everything she had built as far as legacy. And after WWF, she did go to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and she was wrestling the men there, but she couldn't wrestle with her identity, and people didn't want to book Johnny Laura. They wanted to book Chyna, the ninth wonder of the world.
But she legally changed her name to Chyna.
But that was about 2014, 15, when TNA brought her in for an angle with Kurt Angle.
Yeah, she did it.
So,
I mean, Chyna, and she did have a lot of opportunities as far as acting and stuff like that. Unfortunately, some of her demons got the best of her, so she would miss a lot of the opportunities that she was getting. If drugs didn't get the best of Chyna, not only would she still be alive today, but she would have gotten a lot. She would have gotten a lot of opportunities outside of WWE. Chyna could have been a really big star outside of WWE if drugs didn't overtake her. She could have easily been a model and TV actress. Yeah. She looked like an action star. To me, Chyna could have probably been Wonder Woman back in her prime. Back in that day,
she was supposed to be the female Terminator in the third Terminator movie.
That's absolutely
the reason why she didn't get that role is because Vince didn't want her. Supposedly, the story is Vince didn't want her doing that outside of WWE.
What was one of the most surprising things you found out doing your research for Chyna? What is one of the things that surprised you most?
It wasn't so much that it surprised me. Per se, because I've been following wrestling for so many years, but it was just everything kept running back to how selfish and disrespectful Triple H handled the whole situation between her and between her and Stephanie.
Wow.
They ended up her straight out of her own mouth. You can check the interview. Her side of the story with the Triple H thing was she figured something was happening for a while the storyline between Hunter Helmsley and the McMahon Helmsley faction. When that story picked up, she was getting suspicious that he was dating her, and she didn't have the proof. So one night after an event, they usually main evented, so they had to wait to the end of the night, and she's waiting for the flight, and Triple H doesn't show up. It says something along the effect that he, missed his flight or something like that. She gets delayed in the airport, and for some reason doesn't catch the flight they were supposed to take together.
Yeah.
While waiting in the airport, she sees him about to board the corporate jet with the entire McMahon family.
Wow.
This led to them eventually arguing over the fact, her bringing the situation to the forefront. She ended up going through his stuff, finding Stephanie's text messages and love letters, and she brought it to Vince. Vince already knew.
Damn.
She had no support, and that led to an argument between her and Triple H, where he ended up putting hands on her. They had domestic situation, and Triple H never spoke to her again.
Wow.
So it was like, this is somebody who she was in the business with, in love with, engaged with.
They were inseparable on the road.
Engaged with.
Yeah, they were inseparable on the road.
She elevated his career. Triple H had the full package. The mic, the look, and the wrestling skills. But he wasn't getting looked at until the Enforcer, Chyna, debuted, and all eyes were finally focused on Triple H through Chyna. So he kind of owes a lot of his career and success to Chyna. So, in the interview she had, it was an interview with Vince Russo. Please check that out. She pretty much said, listen, they were in love. Like, it happens. But the pure fact that he never spoke to her again, the way he handled that situation. And at the end of the day, be a professional. You guys both contributed a lot to WWF, WWE now, and to kind of blackball her out of that situation.
Yeah, which brings me to
money's not an issue. I'm pretty sure they could have figured out a good contract for Chyna. Money's not an issue.
Well, they were offering her a base pay of $400,000, and she wanted $1 million base pay. I mean, I'm not sure if Stone Cold was getting $1 million base pay at that point, but I mean, $400,000 in 1990. No, this is 2000. I mean, sounds.
But you're literally investing $1 million into somebody who's in the caliber of a woman's Hulk Hogan. If you think about it.
I mean, but this is not including.
She's on that level.
This is not including everything she was going to get including on top of it. That was just a base. That's she never did any pay-per-views.
We don't know the full behind the scenes about to even compare contracts.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm pretty sure they could have found an agreement. Chyna loved what she did. She loved the company she worked for. And
there was also rumors that people said that Chyna was getting a little big-headed. Also,
I mean,
she, I'm not taking anything away from Chyna, but there were rumors that she was getting big-headed and just like, I'm the star of the company, I'm the main event.
I came across that while doing my little research on her as well, and I kind of agree with her sentiment behind, defending. She actually got asked that, and it was more so like, how can you go from about 5 years plus fighting the men toe to toe on an equal level to then going and having the same level match quality with women who've been involved in nothing but bra and panties matches and bikini contests?
It's true. Very true.
And that is
it's not believable.
That's the most. That's exactly what she said. It's not believable. It lowers her stock, and it doesn't really do much for these bra and panty era women.
Nobody's ever gonna believe you're gonna.
Not taking nothing away from them. Of course, the women were afforded only about a few minutes out of the show, or put in these spots back then.
Long before the women's ever. This is when Sasha, Becky, Bailey, and all of them were still in high school watching. So this is long before any woman of any caliber could really even, really stand up to Chyna. There was no woman around that could believably even stand a chance against Chyna. It only made sense for Chyna to go against the men.
I mean, let's be real. She was in the Generation X, and they were going toe to toe with the Nation, and she was involved with that situation, clotheslining grown men from the Nation of Domination.
Yeah.
To go from that to getting, taking losses from, let's say, a Stacy Keibler around that time, or a Tori Wilson.
It just wasn't believable.
It's not believable. So I understand. It's not so much big-headedness. It's knowing your worth. You came in and you crushed barriers and broke down barriers. She was the only woman ever in history to even join the King of the Ring tournament. And if a woman does it now, it's going to be in the Queen of the Ring.
Yeah.
Queen of the Ring. Yeah. Which is rumored to, be coming
Hopefully.
up. But
in 2000...
No woman will ever be in the King of the Ring again.
Yeah, two-time Intercontinental Women's Champion. In 2000, she was ranked 106 out of the top 500 wrestlers on the planet by PW Insider, who still does lists till this day.
Let's put it in perspective as far as that big-headed thing that people try to say. The list of people she's beaten, their championship reigns, you can't even count on your hands and feet. She's beaten Triple H. She's beaten Kurt Angle. She's beaten Chris Jericho. Val Venus. Jeff Jarrett. Among a whole bunch of other people. So, she knew her worth, and she knew that she was there for the long haul.
She's beaten world heavyweight champions. So,
she was the first and only woman to actually be #1 contender to a WWF championship.
Yep.
So, come on. No woman ever in history could even blink at that title unless she was polishing it for the male champion she was escorting.
So,
that's crazy.
Do you think Chyna will ever be in the Hall of Fame?
I'm hoping that WWE listens and they put her in 2019.
Mick Foley
That's wishful thinking. Her family, Mick Foley
tweeted that he would like to see Chyna in the Hall of Fame.
Her family has also been tweeting that they want their daughter in the Hall of Fame.
Listen to the accolades we just listed out. 2-time Intercontinental Champion, 1-time Women's Champion,
first time in the Rumble, first woman in the King of the Ring. Same year, 1999, by the way.
Ranked 106 out of the top 500 wrestlers in the world, PW Inside. Those accolades alone, she should be in the Hall of Famer. It's kind of a shame, with the whole thing she did with porn and all that she won't get in, but I think those kind of things can be overlooked.
And that it should be overlooked.
We live in the age of information.
Let's be honest. If anybody led her to that direction in her career, you blame Vince for that. At that time,
I don't know.
Playboy magazine covers.
I don't know if I can blame Vince for that.
Playboy magazine covers was a yearly thing for the women in the WWF.
Yeah.
She's not the only person to be on a Playboy cover. The reason I could blame Vince for that because that partnership he had with Hefner back in the days put her in that spotlight twice while under the WWF banner. That gave her that whole adult career section. You took away her ability to use her character in any other promotion. Her personal issues, dealing with that whole situation all that culminated in her not being able to get work as well. So
I mean,
let's not
the
completely put the blame on Vince, because she
Yeah.
also had
The
drug abuse issues.
drug abuse
She also
issues,
had
yeah.
alcohol abuse issues, a lot of domestic violence with her other partners outside of Triple H, including X-Pac Sean Waltman, which is long and storied, and they speak.
I mean, that didn't
spoken
really
about.
necessarily help things out because Sean. I mean, he's come out and said it a lot of times. He wasn't in the best position himself. He was.
No, he was on meth.
He was in drugs.
And he was
during
doing
that
a whole
time,
bunch
too,
of
so,
stuff himself.
Yeah.
So, a lot of it has to blame on both sides. Chyna for sinking into the drugs and using that as a way to cope with her issues. And, also the way that WWF management handled that whole situation and kind of blackballed her in that route. Now, you gave her the lane to have this adult career. She took it to the next level, but that was also an unfortunate thing when her sex tape with X-Pac was leaked as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things. It was the past with the Playboy, and then the sex tapes getting leaked. So it's like she was already exposed in that light, and she figured, why not capitalize and make money off of it?
Is Chyna the most dominant woman of all time?
Hands down.
Hands down, Chyna's
Hands
the most
down.
dominant woman of all time.
Hands down. Maybe not as far as championship reigns of overall titles, but name another woman that had the Continental Championship, and name another woman that, if so, did it twice. Not one.
No woman.
Not one woman. Not one woman, but after her has been named number one contender for the WWF Championship. Not one. There's haven't been another female enforcer that was enforcing for a male.
The only woman that even looks
Tamina.
kind of not Tamina doesn't even like.
Tamina got the enforcer role. That's She's been stuck in that role for years.
In the physical stature, the only woman I can think that even looks anything kind of resemblant to Chyna is
Camille Brickhouse.
Yep. That's the only woman that.
And so sexy.
Very sexy. Yeah.
She had like that in between phase where Chyna had that. She had a good run where I think I think she was on steroids in the early beginning. On top of the bodybuilding.
Yeah. Because I mean, look at her. I mean, she
I
had no
didn't
breasts.
I didn't come across any confirmation of that, but
It looked like it,
just
though.
the body changes.
Yeah.
It looked like it. So
She looked.
there was a point where she slimmed down and she got real feminine, but still maintained a strong looking physique.
She like a man.
Yeah, I can see it around there in comparison. Camille Brickhouse.
Yeah. Look, call a spade a spade. Chyna looked like a man, then she, femmed up, and now she started looking like a.
Well, I don't want to come off disrespectful.
I mean, it's not being disrespectful. It is what it is. You can look at a time lapse of her. She looked like a man, and then she maybe I don't know. She was doing steroids, whatever she was doing. She stopped, and then you can see, she got surgery. She got breast implants, and she became a very beautiful woman. She got on the cover of Playboy. Chyna went from looking like a straight man to like, damn, I want Chyna. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I'm not, let's call it spade a spade. She looked like Miss Man from Scary Movie 1.
Facts. Yeah,
So
facts. And then she went from looking like Miss Man to being on the cover of Playboy. So that shows
huge transformation.
Huge transformation,
But let's get back to the base. I think they should definitely overlook the Playboy situation and this adult. You can focus solely on her career.
Absolutely.
There's so much to content, so many years she gave to WWF that you don't have to overlook it. And what about people like Sunny,
Ultimate Warrior,
or Tori Wilson, or Sabu that's had Playboy covers and stuff like that?
I mean, but they didn't do porno.
It doesn't.
Because that's what it comes down to.
Sunny did do porn. Sunny actually sells herself regularly on the internet.
Yeah, Sunny did do porn. Yeah, I think it might have to do some personal things with Triple H.
Exactly my point.
Stuff.
Why that was the biggest surprise of looking up her stuff was the way they handled it. Like I heard of these things before, but seeing the interviews on both sides and seeing what people said revolving the entire situation and how things lined up, it was a badly handled situation. And back then there was a lot of drugs involved. I'm not even gonna take it away from the possibility that Triple H was even involved in that himself.
I mean, they supposedly lived a really clean lifestyle. her and Triple H were really gym orientated, just really stayed in shape.
Well, he's like that with Stephanie now.
Yeah, I mean, Chyna did a lot of stuff outside of the WWE too. She appeared on a lot of different TV shows, a lot of different
She
cameos.
was on what was it? The Unreal World, something like that.
She was on Celebrity Deathmatch. She did an episode of
Surreal Life. That's what it was. She was on Surreal Life.
But before that, that's like I'm talking about some like the good stuff she did. She was on the Third Rock from the Sun, Mad TV, nice. Celebrity Deathmatch. She did Fear Factor. She was on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the Nick Cannon Show, Whose Line Is It Anyway, the Anna Nicole Show. So she did like a lot of stuff. Like if the drugs didn't get, like I said, if the drugs didn't get hold of her, Chyna could have had a really successful acting career outside of the WWE.
I think honestly, Vince blackballed her on the Terminator deal because he knew that would be the turning point, and he'll lose Chyna to Hollywood on the same level he lost The Rock to Hollywood.
But he did at one point lose The Rock to Hollywood, but The Rock has said, because he wanted to do things on his own. Everybody knew him as The Rock.
So why wouldn't you let one of your most top talent female stars go on and branch off to Terminator, and bring those eyes back to WWE?
They would have automatically brought eyes to WWE because everybody, that's the woman from WWF. Even if they don't know her, that's the woman from wrestling. Yeah. That's her. But they would automatically identify her.
The woman who did Terminator, while she did a good role, I enjoyed her role in the movie. I think Chyna was the perfect fit.
Chyna.
I think everybody kind of automatically when they said, I remember clearly around that time when the movie was coming out, when they announced that the Terminator would be female, almost everyone instantly went straight to Chyna should play it.
Yes.
Kind of how they go to Brock Lesnar should play Eddie Brock. So
yeah, I guess if Brock Lesnar had some acting chops, that actually would be hell yeah, that would be awesome. But yeah, man, hopefully one day Chyna will make it to the Hall of Fame. I mean, she deserves it. So, what's your favorite memory of Chyna?
My favorite memory is WrestleMania 17, her first Women's Championship win. That was like the pinnacle of Chyna being a standalone star. She wasn't riding the wave with Eddie Guerrero anymore. She was already past the DX, past the Triple H. She was finally doing her own thing, and it's sad that that run got cut short. To me, she's forever the WWF Women's Champion. No one ever beat her, so she's still, technically the champion till the death. So, that WrestleMania 17 overall is my favorite WrestleMania ever, and she was a big part of making it that.
Yeah. I don't know if I necessarily have a favorite Chyna moment, but I just love kind of that entrance from WrestleMania 20, from WrestleMania 17.
With the pyro gun.
Yeah, with the pyro gun, and just that look of Chyna, like she looked beautiful.
You know what's funny?
She was really
I feel like that look kind of inspired Charlotte, if you think about it. Chyna was doing the peacock ostrich neck thing.
Oh yeah, kind of, yeah.
That inspired a lot of people's
I can imagine Chyna was a big influence on a lot of women's wrestlers that are in the game now. But that's my favorite memory of Chyna. Just that look, she looked great.
I think another moment outside of that was just her general feud with Chris Jericho.
That was so awesome.
Just that
they
were both the IC champion.
She had the cat with her, like that does the mini Chyna.
She was like the mini clone of Chyna.
Yeah, the mini clone of Chyna. That was fun. Yeah, that was fun. Man, I really love Chyna. Chyna was a part of, when you think of Latino, this is one of my favorite parts of Chyna too. I mean, just her and Eddie Guerrero, I don't know if anybody was writing that stuff or
I didn't even hear that. That's Eddie speaking down. Like, I agree. Talk about the mamacita. That was a big turning point. And that showed her character too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if that stuff was improv or people wrote it, but whatever. They were so natural together. They really fit together really well. I really like that.
Because, regardless of her problems, you can tell that she was just a genuine soul.
That's what JR said about her.
And, that's a lot of people say that about her. And Eddie Guerrero was another one. He had a lot of alcohol abuse and drug abuse himself, but Eddie is loved and missed to this day. And Chyna's on that level. People love and miss Chyna, and they really wish that she was respected in that way.
Chyna was part of
WWF needs to give their respect do to her.
They do.
You know,
Maybe Chyna was part of my childhood.
Listen, have Vince Russo come and induct her. You don't even have to have any member of D-Generation X if they don't want to.
We don't need that. Oh yeah, they were good.
They were
friends
best,
in real life.
like good
They
friends.
were good friends in real life. You know, like I said, Chyna was part of my childhood. You know, when you think about the Attitude Era, you have to think about Chyna. She was right. When you think about DX, you think about Triple H, Rick Rude, Shawn Michaels, and Chyna. Like,
come on, that first promo that even created DX.
Exactly.
Chyna's in the back holding the European Championship.
exactly. She's always holding the championship.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
She was keeping it safe for DX.
So, you know, the Attitude, she's firmly stamped in the Attitude. She's been stunned. I mean, come on, you know, so it's kind of a shame that she's not in there. But, you know, we're here to celebrate the hires of Chyna. Chyna is groundbreaking. She's legendary. Chyna might be the greatest women's wrestler of all time. You can argue that. Do I necessarily think she is? No. But can you argue that? I think she has the biggest presence in women's wrestling.
Well, it's like
honestly.
I said, you can compare
She didn't have
her.
a long enough career.
It's like a Hulk Hogan thing. Is he the best wrestler? No, he's not. But his character and his presence alone,
what he did for wrestling.
he's immortal.
Yeah.
And what he did for wrestling.
Absolutely.
She's
absolutely
the woman, the female Hulk Hogan, but she paved her own way. So she's the ninth wonder of the world,
Absolutely.
Chyna. And to come after the eighth wonder, which is Andre the Giant, someone as iconic as that, you're, in the same vein as Andre the Giant.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the proof is in the pudding right there. Like,
so for my ninth and final question, because we're following, ninth wonder of the woman, you know what I'm saying? And this is inspired, we always do spotlights. We don't actually just go after the woman, it just happens to just be the woman because the first one was on Becky Lynch. And we've been talking about Chyna, how Chyna should be in the Hall
I
of
don't
Fame.
know.
We've been talking about Chyna.
Honestly, China's been on my mind a lot recently.
We did the top 9 on Chyna.
We have the top 9 reasons she's the ninth wonder. Check that out.
And when I seen you do that, I was just like, man, we've been talking about doing it. We need to do a spotlight, and we've been talking about Chyna. And I really just wanted to get in some of this Chyna talk. And so for my ninth and final question, if you could fantasy book Chyna versus any woman today, past, present, whoever, if you could fantasy book dream match Chyna, who would you put Chyna up against? What venue? You can put title in there. Fantasy book it.
All right. Well, I would probably have to start with a Chyna return.
Okay.
Right? So, Chyna probably will return in a spot, let's say, shortly before the Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have Charlotte as the champion.
Mm-hmm.
I have Chyna come in and tie Roman Reigns for the most eliminations.
Ooh.
And win
Ooh.
the Women's Royal Rumble.
Okay.
She'll choose Charlotte, and they'll have a classic because Charlotte is the perfect technique, presence.
Power.
She's the perfect.
Wrestler.
Chyna's the perfect power. So it's just a clash of styles, and in the moments where the power is like gets a little stale, or would get stale in the match. Someone like a Charlotte will bring the technicality back in the match, and that would just be my dream match for 2019.
Nice.
If we could do it.
Nice.
That's how I'd book it.
Nice.
How'd you book it?
If I can book it, man, I was really good, man, with trying to come in the Royal Rumble, and man, I would book it. I would have. It would be Survivor Series. It would be Raw vs. SmackDown, and SmackDown has a mystery opponent. It's the 4 Horsewomen on Raw, and the woman need Asuka. We're gonna throw Ronda in there. Naomi, whatever. They need another opponent. They said we're gonna wait till the night of Survivor Series to reveal who our mystery tag team partner is. We get there, and boom, it's Chyna. Chyna's a mystery opponent. Then Chyna's back in the regular loop of TV. She does a couple of matches. She wins. It's Chyna. She looks great. And
Which would you have Miss Man Chyna?
I mean, this is.
Would you have
no
WrestleMania Chyna?
No, this is WrestleMania Chyna. This is what I'm thinking in my head. Yeah, this is WrestleMania Chyna. This is Playboy cover Chyna. This is doing backflips, bench pressing Chyna. Yeah, this is that Chyna back.
Oh man, we didn't even focus on. She was athletic too.
Oh man, her back. Yeah, her
besides
moveset was
being
awesome.
strong, She used to do that. What it was like
It's-
4 flips and then
yeah, it
the
was-
elbow into the turnbuckle.
Yeah, like the springboard backflips and all that stuff.
So
yeah, man.
she
China
had
used to put
it.
on.
She had it.
I mean, she
was
beat
the package,
Chris,
man.
she beat Chris Jericho for the Intercontinental Championship, man. I mean, you know, it was a good match. It was.
Yeah, and
it was
these
a good
matches that she won them in, like won these titles or these rivalries she was in with the men, it wasn't like a quick gimmick and she won in a bullshit
No,
way.
she
She legitimately had
matches.
matches. In the King of the Ring, she actually beat Val Venus
Yep.
in 2 minutes and about 50-something seconds, and then lost to the Road Dogg in the second round in a 13-minute plus match.
Nice.
So, you know, it was
She was going.
she was going, man. She was
Yeah,
definitely
she was
going.
going, man. I don't know. I don't really have a good fantasy booking for China, to be honest with you. To be honest with you, I would love to see. When I see Shayna Baszler, she kind of reminds me of Chyna. That would have been cool to see Shayna Baszler versus Chyna. It would have been cool to. It would have been cool to see somebody like a Candice LeRae, who's like really athletic and kind of that spunky underdog going up against a super heel dominant Chyna. I would have liked to see Sasha Banks go up against Chyna. I see Chyna being a super heel. Like, just, I mean, look at her. She could be a super babyface or she could be a super heel. So
China could have transitioned into that cocky, dominant champion.
and that's kind of how I'm seeing
You know,
her in my head. Like the cocky, dominant, champion.
You all don't compare to me.
Exactly.
you know
what
like,
I'm saying? Yeah.
She could have been a Brock Lesnar, but that was there every week.
Yeah, I would have loved to see like that kind of like a Bailey go up against her. You know what I'm saying? Somebody like that real underdog go up against like the huge. So that's how I would have fantasy booked it. But China, Jonah Laurie. Unfortunately, things didn't end up. Things ended badly. But like I said, we're not really focusing on that because the legacy she left left a footstep, an imprint on WWE. I really wish WWE would acknowledge her more. Even like in the intros when they're showing like the now, the then, now, and forever.
She should definitely be
She
in
should
that.
definitely be in there.
She should definitely be in the signature.
All personal stuff aside.
Honestly, when they didn't find a replacement for the Fabulous Moolah Cup, it should have been the Ninth Wonder Cup.
It should really
Just like the Eighth Wonder of the World is on the men's trophy, she should have been on the women's trophy. The same stance, just like that.
Yeah, because
like that.
Listen, if you guys can make up with Bret Hart, with Bruto Sammartino, with Ultimate Warrior, if you can make up with all these guys and all that, like, come on. They hired Jeff Jarrett back. Like, come on.
How many times he's left the company?
He held them up. He held them up for $300,000 just to put over China that night in the home cleaning match that she won in. Like, come on, man. Like, China definitely. We can't list her accolades enough. That China she's a staple in the Attitude Era. China should absolutely be in the Hall of Fame.
For sure.
Yeah, man.
Sure.
But I think we can keep rambling on about China. China, we're watching SmackDown Live. China, the enigma, the ninth wonder of the world, arguably the greatest women's wrestler of all time, absolutely the most dominant women's wrestler of all time. Chyna, the ninth wonder in the world. WWE put her in the Hall of Fame, and that's the bottom line because Kayfabe said so. That was a new one, huh?
Yeah.
That was a new one. You like that one?
Well, tell them where they can find you at.
You can find me at Mr. Richie Moon. You can find me at Kayfabe Avenue.
You can find me at Kayfabe AJ on Instagram. Follow, like, subscribe. Please give us some comments below. Tell us what you think. Maybe some ideas for the next spotlight.
Yep.
We hope you enjoyed this little discussion on China. Like we said earlier, we have the 9 reasons why she's the ninth wonder. We have that video up for you guys. Check that out. This was Kayfabe Livecast, and she was the ninth wonder. Rest in peace, China.
Yes. And with that being said, we must bid you a farewell.